Hello, my name's Ross Waterston, the creator and founder of Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching now, and Geordie Consulting, our consultancy business offering Power Platform consultancy services to businesses of all sizes. Wow, that just rolls off the tongue. What I wanted to talk to you today about as we start semester 3 was that wider piece, isn't it? In terms of actually what is Power BI when you actually put it into an enterprise or even just a small business? Because no matter what you're doing, there's a lot more to Power BI than I think is inherently obvious and is often one of those things that just gets missed. So I thought, let's take the time now, okay, and go through exactly what we mean, because there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot of benefit that really your business and your organization can get from starting to embrace these simple principles of Power BI and of being able to really expand and utilize your data, especially because as you do that, the value of your data actually increases. And in my view, it's almost an exponential increase rather than kind of just a hierarchical one. But yeah, let's have a look and see what that looks like. But first, let's do the boring bit. Geordie Intelligence is a YouTube channel. So help YouTube understand that this channel is reasonable, I hope. And if you like the content, like the videos, add a comment. Tell me what you think, tell me what you like, what you don't like. If you don't like the videos, put thumbs down. You know, I'm quite happy to see those as well. It's important that we understand that we're helping you, and if there's bits we're missing or not giving you enough detail on, that you tell us, because I've got no problem reshooting additional bits, putting additional video content in, but you have to say. And remember the most important thing, there's no such thing as a stupid question, only a stupid answer. So the pressure is always on us to deliver for you guys. So here we are, okay, in the Power BI service. And this really is one of those hub things that you've got in Power BI and that I think is really important that you understand and grasp. So this was the dashboard that we put together for the single pane of glass reporting. Now, we need to be really clear. Power BI has a specific dashboard element, and it's not what most people mean when they say dashboard. In Power BI senses, what you would say when most people say dashboard is report. And report is report. Dashboard and report are dashboards. Dashboards within Power BI are menus, okay? Just think of them as a menu system. There's nothing else to think about. It is a menu to make it easy for people to see content and bring it to the surface and then go on and explore it. Deliberately, this dashboard is made up to be kind of horrible, okay? Partly to show what goes on with the dashboard and what it does, but also just so that it's clear. So what we've got here is these 3 New York data sets that we run with and that we used for this single pane of glass report pack. And it's important that you recognize this because there's 3 things going on with this. So firstly, obviously we've got 3 different data sets within it. So we've got the New York yellow taxi data, we've got the city bike, so the bike hire, and we've got the rooftop water tower inspections data. Those are 3 different data models. Okay. Now, or semantic models as it is now. Now within a Power BI report, you can only be running a report against a single semantic model. Okay? You can, before anybody puts in the comments, oh, we can use hybrid models. Yes, you can. And a hybrid model, you'd be creating a new semantic model. So you've got one model within that report, but it's a hybrid model, which potentially doesn't exist anywhere else, which is just, please don't do it, okay? No. What we've got here, though, is the ability to actually bring them together up to the front so we can see it. And this is one of those models that kind of has ended up being, I recommend it to a lot of clients because it works very well. But, you know, for you, it might not work for you. It's just kind of this kind of mindset around it. So what it is we've got 3 distinct areas. So we've got 3 columns that we put in place. So if we put in, is it this? Pick the pointer, control, right. So we've got column 1, yeah. Column 2, and then kind of column 3, okay? And because you're using columnar structures, it makes it easy for the mind or for the eye to read. But remember, we read left to right, don't we? Okay, so by having then a bar across here, let's go back to here, pointer, we've got core KPIs and core metrics across this piece. So we're actually looking straight away, aren't we, and seeing, right, what needs to be done here? Okay, this could be the top bits that we've got. And then below it, we start to get into more specific areas around that focus of this business area. So you end up with quite a good structure that you've got kind of your departmental reports, or if you're a big business, you can have like your organizational structures going through. You know, if you're a big multinational with lots of different divisions that are properly separate entities, you can have those there. And then obviously you can have a structure within this because dashboards can link to dashboards. But the key thing is that when we come out of here, what this does is it makes it all interactive. So we've got here this inspections by year. Like, so we've got this many. So I can click on it and it will take me to a report page that relates to that came from. So what we're actually seeing on the dashboard is a pointer. And that pointer that goes back is the key. That we've got the ability then to piece together everything across our organization, pick key areas and metrics and surface them up, that triggers so that you've got that one place, that one page view of everything that is going on across your organization. So if we go back to here, okay, we've got this clear menu system, haven't we? So we've got multiple structures. We've got it laid out in a way that is easy to be understood and accessible to our audience. Obviously, don't do this kind of like with blue and white and with blue charts on it. The point was always around showing that this is blocks, is what we wanted you to see. Okay, that's also the limitation. You're kind of stuck to these like little blocks. This is like a 1 block unit, and then we've got these which are 6 block units, I think. So you kind of, or even 9. But you can piece together, you can go on, and they can go down vertically, so you can carry those on down, or they can go horizontally, so you can have more stuff and scroll. But you can also have dashboards linked to dashboards. So because of that, what I mean by that, let's see, if we go out of here, I can't see my mouse again. If I go to edit, okay, I was in the app view for that. Right, and we look at the structure of it, you can see we've got here 2 dashboards. So if we come in here and open this dashboard and say, there we go. Okay. So what we can do is we can edit this. We can see if we can do things. We can also put in a custom link to an external or to something else. And we could bring in other things. So you can choose and create report pages that just have KPIs on them, surface them up to a dashboard, put the link going to a different page or to a different report. And that way you build stuff up. Now, the piece that this suddenly draws you into doing, okay, and this is again where suddenly it becomes, right, I now get it, this is a game changer, is that instead of having 1 report per data set, you'll have multiple. And you can see we have multiple reports coming into the same dashboard, but they don't necessarily, so in here we've got the bike aggregation, we've got the monthly, and we've got the yearly, we've got different stuff coming through. You can do all sorts with this. And in practice, what often happens and what we see with clients as we've gone through further with them, is each one of these would link back to a separate report that all ties back to the same semantic model, but detailed around being 1, maybe 2 pages of real high value insights into that one number. So that number surfaces and then you drill down into it. And what that does is this is the topic that we really are covering today. And this is around getting to that mindset that your Power BI environment is multi-layered, as opposed to just being it's a single data plane, we're just presenting everything in one. And I see it a lot. So I saw it in Reddit, a subreddit on Power BI just last week. Somebody said, oh, how do I hide a specific page? You don't, okay? Because your report should be small, compact, and very specific. So in terms of saying, well, we don't want this team to see it, potentially you put it in a different workspace, depends on what you're doing. Different workspace, when you're publishing it as an app, you use a different audience for that. There's lots of options available to you, but it's because you're not trying to do it in one big giant report that has everything. You have a semantic model that has everything that people need, and lots of reports that just connect into it and serve up the actual data and insights that are needed by the audience. Not one big giant report, lots of small. And because you're doing lots of small, and those small reports just contain visualizations, a lot of the questions that we also get in terms of how do you do data management and that kind of thing, and version control, they kind of fall out. Because one of the things that we talk about is, well, the published version is the version that we use, as opposed to saying, well, I'm going to keep a version repository offline for my reports, which of course you will do, but because people, as we can see here, have a tendency, or can, and the can is a lot more than I would say it should be. If I went into here and I'm about to go and present to my line management, and they say, or to my senior leadership team, and somebody says, oh, I don't like that blue, or oh, can we do something? And I quickly just go, oh, yeah, no problem, edit and do it. Suddenly my offline version is different to the version that's published. And then the issue would be, if I went and did an update, I would do the update offline and publish it up. So in practice, what we tend to say is, if you're doing updates on a specific report here, so if we were coming here, say, right, we're going to update this report pack and do something, I would say whoever's doing it, whoever's assigned to do it, which, again, it's going to be one of us, and because it's just visuals, we don't need a multi-user environment. It's not multi-user. It's going to say, oh, right, Ross, can you go and add this, change this to, say, well, it might be one's coming up now. Can you change this to Azure Maps, for example? So I'd go File, I would come to download this file. Hey, it's not letting me download. Why is it not letting me download? Oh, probably because it was built online. This was built online, sorry. But normally you go download the file, do it. If it was built online, obviously you can't, so you would just go edit it, make the changes. But you get to that point where, because they're just 1 or 2 pages of visuals, there's no requirement for source control as such. Okay. This is one of those reasons as well why we talk about what are we going to do with naming conventions for measures, because it needs to be obvious to people that measure exists within that report only, as opposed to being one of the ones that's existing in the core semantic model. And it's one we need to agree those terms, and I would say definitely have that discussion internally and work out what works for you. But anyway, I digress. Let's carry on. So the other thing that we've got, as we say, is this brings in the idea of layering, doesn't it? So we're over here in our Newcastle Park Runs report, which is just a nice one because it kind of shows a lot of the value of layering. So if you think, we've got a dashboard right at the top, haven't we? So we've got this idea of having a dashboard that's just the top level menu that will drive you down to the next level down. Okay, for this one, because this is a report that's going to be published free, what we can't do is we can't use Power BI dashboards. I can only use a single report. You can't really have people linking between reports in a free report. It just doesn't work. I mean, Microsoft, I get it. It makes sense. I'm not going to criticize it. It's something that they really do not recommend doing. I like doing this for things that I want you guys to see and to think about. But yeah, in terms of practical senses for the real world, don't. Okay. So what we have is we can hover over here though, can't we? And see. So if we hover over Jasmine Dean, you see it brings up a tooltip. Okay, it tells me some information. So in my mind, and again, I'm quite a visual person, like spatial is a big thing for me. So we've got that top level menu, that dashboard that allows me to drill down to get to the report. I'm at the report level here. I can hover over something and it's showing me something above it, isn't it? Showing me that layer, that sample bit of information. So I'm suddenly seeing a lot more about what's going on. Oh, okay, so I can see Jasmine Dean. We've got who's like the current streak holders, what's the average participation, how many people have we had overall. We can do the same for Town More. It updates, we can do, we've got all that capability there. What we can also do is if we hover over on something else, it tells us something different. So we can see the volunteer ratios or how many people have volunteered at a particular time. And again, we can come to see who the main volunteers are for anywhere in that. Okay, and we get lots of information out just from seeing those. And then because of that structure, what we can then do is we can, if we click on something, as you see here, we get the drill through. So this drill through helps further. So the interactivity of Power BI is the bit I want you to see here. Yeah. So overall, it's what we're here. Yeah. I hover, and I get that insight, that showing over everything. This is the detail that you might be looking into. So I've got more information, more insight coming out. If I click on that, the cross-highlighting or the cross-filtering functionality that Power BI has takes over, and everything on the page updates to be telling me specific information about this, yeah, about whatever it is I've selected. So you could imagine this is about parkruns. This could be your departments. This could be your stores. You know, if you're like, say, running a McDonald's franchise in Newcastle, or sorry, let's be more on brand. If you're running a Greggs franchise in Newcastle, or if you're Greggs, looking at your Greggs stores in Newcastle, you could see what are the daily sales, what's the last month, what's whatever. You know, all that could be built onto the tooltip. You click on it and suddenly we're seeing more information at our top level that we wanted to see, but actually broken down specifically for that. And then what we've got is we've got here. So we've got the ability as well in here to drill through. Now, you do have that option on the right click menu. You've got drill through. Okay, but we've put it as a button as well, just to help make it easier. And now we can drill through. So I think, you know, this is kind of like that drilling down, isn't it, into that more detailed view of what's happened with something. And we've gone here now to a different layer, haven't we? So we've kind of dropped down another layer. So we've gone from, if you imagine a dashboard at the top, we went down to this. This is now going to show us this, like if we, you know, like Greg's top level dashboard with like retail, so the actual sales, you have manufacturing, because it's some, or bakery, I don't know. Well, yeah, they bake, prepare stuff off site and then bring it to the site and finish the baking. Then you've got the idea of it going through into potentially HR or other corporate side, like that you'd have marketing, different columns, wouldn't you, within our dashboard. So we've gone through into our retail side, saying it's, and here's the map with all the stores. Clicked on it to go into the specifics of it, and we've now got, say, a daily or a monthly breakdown. Potentially we could drill down further within there and have an additional going down into a daily. But for me, interactively, I haven't had to do an awful lot. I've kind of gone to one place, the insights are all there for me. Again, over here, if we hover, we see different insights come up. So in terms of a breakdown of male versus female, we've got the age group breakdown again as well. Further things all there to try and help serve up information quickly and easily. We've also got on here, in terms of the color coding, so conditional formatting to really show different things as well. What we're looking at here is the age grade performance. And one of the things they talk about is that age grade should decrease over time in a parkrun, because as an event becomes more inclusive and starts to be embraced more within the area, it should have more people doing it. And we do have more people. We also see the age grade percentage has gone down. So what we're seeing is that it's becoming more accessible. So we're having less elites and more everyone, which is what we want. That's what parkrun's about. We want everyone involved, everyone wanting to do it. So great, we've got that. So we've got these ideas, haven't we, here? We can see lots of stuff happening. Again, we've got this one, 7th of September, so this was Great North Run weekend last year. We can click on that. We see everything updates. And we can then see we've got a drill through again that we can use. So we can go and let's drill through again to a next level down. So we've gone, you know, we keep drilling down and going through it. But I'm not having to go away and get more information, or sounds, oh, can you find out what happened there? Can you do that? Oh, can you do that? So we've got everything that we could want here. And then what we also have is we've got the ability now, again on these, so we can choose to go through and drill through and see somebody else. I'm going to find someone who I know has done quite a few of these. I shouldn't have picked one that was quite so busy, should I? Gosh, I wrote there, Libby. Okay. So we can choose, go through and see that person's personal record across what they've done across the Newcastle events, and we can then do that. So suddenly we've gone from that quite narrow context to we've expanded, haven't we? And we've seen suddenly, well, there's more information there, and this is now going to show me everything that this person has done across the 4 events that we're tracking. So you can see, you can do that. So you can imagine you could do something similar with your customers if you were looking at doing a customer report, going through and really getting into that information about specifics of what's going on at any given point. And then suddenly you expand that customer and it shows you everything they've done, not just at one place. So for, say, a Tesco's, which is, everyone knows that's really what the club card's about. You did know that, didn't you? It's about tracking you. But you can suddenly actually see, well, actually, what have they done across the piece, rather than just looking at that detail, but still see and understand that breakdown. So there's a lot of power within Power BI that is encouraged for you. Now, one of the things that I've touched on, and it's always really difficult to do in terms of in our demo environments, because we aren't doing stuff which is rich enough and complex enough to be real. It's kind of, yes, these are real examples, but I wouldn't go through the route of doing it. In practice, what I would probably do with a lot of these things is go through and say, right, we're going to piece together and put in multiple reports, one for each one, but because we want to publish it, it's just difficult. So you'd have lots of different layers going through, rather than having one report pack that needs governance. The other thing, and I want to check, I'm pretty sure this is the right one. You do. So we had that idea of drill through, where you go and actually drill, which is more of a drill down, I think, but drill down is also with hierarchies within a visual, where you can go from weekly, from yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, whatever, okay? So you can do all that. But we've also got the ability to do something like this. So this is one of the ones that we built for the New York water tower inspections. And it's kind of like, the idea was, look, we can make a certificate you can kind of print off. So you'd go do your inspection and then get there and say, right, okay, I've done this, go and print that off. You could then say display it in your building, okay? And this is an external report, okay? So you have to enable that, yes, you can do external drill through. In the other report that you're going to drill through it from, you have to say, yes, this can be external drill through. They both have to say, yeah. And then it becomes available that you've got an additional drill through option. Let's see if we can demonstrate it to you. So what's the best way to really show kind of what we mean when we talk about the abilities to really drill and explore data? Let's go here, right? We've got the New York water tower here. The external drill is the key thing that we want to have a look at here today, isn't it? So we've got this one here, 451 Clarkson Street, or Clarkson Avenue, sorry, okay? You can right click on it, and under drill through, you see we've got 2 options here. So we've got a details, which is here in this one, but we've also got, and let me zoom in, we've also got this second one, this inspection report, and then square brackets, something else. So that's kind of the thing, isn't it? That there's actually a second report, it's an external report. So you can build drill throughs up that are separate from everything, and then have much more detail and explore those. You've got the capability with the drill through that we've shown already in terms of, do we retain our filter structures so that we actually are narrowing in on the insights, or do we use it to then say, well, this is just the pointer, now give me everything here. And then again, you can drill and explore down that way. So the core that you have to understand here is that to get the most out of Power BI, we really need to be able to use, let's just go through that, sorry, just so for the sake of it, we really need to be able to use something that's going to allow us to pick and choose from multiple aspects of what it is we're doing, because that layering is what's key. So by having a mindset that's going to support layering, you start to build up the idea that we're going to have a semantic model that's going to have lots and lots of report content. And I'll put up a screenshot here of one from years and years ago we had with 30 or so reports on it. I was trying to find one, because the one that we've got with the most was over, I think it was 117 reports connected to it. And that was just the reports. I know there was a similar number of Excel spreadsheets that were also connected to it. So when you think through how much is the business gaining from that semantic model, plus, and this is the other piece, what's the efficiency saving that your BI team, your data team are managing one refresh as opposed to 30 or 40 different refreshes? It's worth thinking about. So what do you reckon then? Okay, now we've always wanted to have this conversation and really show this video and do this talk. I'd hoped it was going to be a bit later in the season. Partly it's because as I was looking at the more advanced things I want us to do in here, it kind of came clear that, well, we haven't had this discussion about layers and why we would have layers and think about layers within Power BI and understanding that we've got dashboards. And then thinking, of course, it's not just that simple, is it? Because yes, we've got dashboards, but is there a layer above a dashboard? And there is, isn't there? There's kind of, you've got your app audiences above that, and then above that, you've got your app. So once you start to really understand what is going on with Power BI and really what it brings to the table for your consumption layer and for your data, data consumption is probably the right way, in terms of it. That it's not about saying we're going to have a point report here and a point report there. We build that idea of a functional area so that you as an analyst, you as a member of the C-suite, you as a member of the sales team go to one place. That one place has that one app that you will access that has all the content that you will need to do your job there, and hopefully some additional content that just helps your job, as opposed to being like, this is what I have to do. There's other things there, and we can start to piece together and understand that as that happens, and that semantic model that you've got is servicing multiple different apps all over the business, and people's individual, I wonder if, what does that mean? You suddenly realize that this changes the whole way that you do business and that your business will run because of what Power BI brings. So it's kind of, you need to understand it. And in terms of the Power BI 101, it's definitely one of those theory things you really need to understand, because it will change what goes on. And you suddenly realize that the savings that you get from Power BI really just like the total cost of ownership of Power BI just starts to fall off a cliff, because you're getting so much more value from it that for all, yes, your total cost of ownership potentially is going up as you're getting more licenses and things like that in your business. Because it's the efficiency savings, the actual real cost that it brings, it starts to diminish because the value proposition of what was there increases. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Hi, my name's Ross Waterston, the creator and founder of Geordie Consulting and Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching today. What I thought we're going to do today is we're actually going to look at some maps. We're going to put some maps together, and then we're going to do kind of the important thing that often happens with maps, which will probably help shape some of what we do. Because if you remember, what we looked at last week was around kind of the idea of layers in Power BI and how you go up and down through them. And with that in mind, what it really means is that your maps become much more kind of that dropping off point that you're then going to drill down or drill through from. So let's go through, let's set up some stuff, let's have a look at our data, and this time we'll put stuff into our file so that you can really actually expand on it. So there'll be something you can get from GitHub. So here we are in Power BI Desktop. Now this is the week 7 file. I've already renamed it week 10 because obviously all the work we do with it will then be published up and made available for you in GitHub so you can download it from there. The key thing that I want you to really recognize here on this page 3 side is we've got a map, okay? Now this map is using a hierarchy. So if we zoom in, you can see we've got a location hierarchy. So we've got state, city, and postcode. So it means we can drill up and drill down within our map. So our map can zoom in and zoom out, which is very useful in terms of what you want to do with it, right? In practical sense, we'd probably only want to go down to city, just in practical terms, but it's nice to be able to see what you can do, that you can go further if you need to. What you can't do with maps, and I think this is one of the things I want to make really clear now, is I think I've only seen this really in icon maps that you can do it with it, which is a paid map now. The free version has been discontinued, but you can't have latitude and longitude and friendly names. Okay, so if you go lat long, your out of the box tooltip, if we have a look over, say here, over Texas, which will currently say state of Texas, region central, so all the information there, it would just show the latitude and longitude, which then doesn't make sense. You'd have to then put in the location somewhere and bring it through, or you need to put in a custom tooltip. If you put in a custom tooltip, the bit at the bottom that comes out here and allows drill down disappears. So there's a trade-off straight away. But I hope this is important. I want you to see kind of the way that this works and start thinking through the value add, what this will bring to you. So for our map here, and this is just using the Bing map, and the Azure map has a very similar way of working as well. So we can tell you, well, let's switch to Azure Maps, because that's what I think Microsoft are trying to get people to do at the moment. And I know when you open them, they're like, all right, switch to Azure Maps. So let's switch to Azure Maps, and then anything we see is Azure Map based rather than this. Okay, so Azure Maps, it's similar, isn't it? I mean, it's a different map. Of course it is, but it's similar. The main thing is, this is more the way that they want you to use it now. If we hover over, say, an area, we see we still get the drill down. Okay, that's interesting. The numbers are different. Are they different? Is there different granularity there? Hang on. Yeah. So there. Who'd have thunk it? Because I thought sales amount we'd set to not have decimal places. Okay, so interesting one. So we'll switch back to Bing Maps. Sorry, to Azure Maps. Okay. So this now goes all the way down to everything, but it's fine. But we can see we've got this capability here. We can change map types depending on what we would want. You know, if there's obviously some people where I don't like this map. Again, when we start talking about standards within an organization, this is a key point, isn't it? What standards are you going to have for your maps? Map type should be one of them that you have. We've got all sorts of other things here as well, including a reference layer. So reference layers can be very useful. You know, we should do a video specifically on reference layers. I might do a short one looking at some of the reference layers and where we can get them from. Because I think we should really, we'll do that. I will do that, actually, rather than looking at it today. Lots of things you can put on here. There's Azure Maps especially, I would say it's still, for all it is GA now, I think it is still developing. So I would say experiment with it. Things like in terms of using cluster bubbles, in terms of using, because you can cluster stuff, as I say, you know, which can work, but you know, when you get to the point like that, is it beneficial? I'm not sure. It's useful if you've got clusters of data, but it removes the cluster, as it were. Yeah, it doesn't so much smear it as remove it. We've got a bubble layers, but what happens when we drill? That's the key piece here, isn't it? So if we hover over, say, Florida, or let's hover over New York. Let's do New York. Okay, so if we hover over, we get to drill down. I'm going to drill down. And it then shows us the various things. We've got New York City. We can see here. We've got Troy. If we pick, say, New York City, you see we get the option to drill down again, which is now going to take us down to the postal code, so we can see it zooms in, and we've actually got quite a nice map of New York. It's like we're obsessed with New York, isn't it? Yeah, you know, it's not like we don't know where John Wick lives. But yeah, anyway, we're not going to go there today. So we can start to see that this allows us to drill up and drill down and explore data and explore the geographical sense of our data quite easily. And as I say, just from saying things like, oh, we know where John Wick lives, we're already bringing context to it. You know, I'm sure if I mention John Wick, you know, very few of you are going to go, I've never heard of John Wick. But there's a memory there that you have from it. You know, we could go into Texas and look at where SpaceX launched their rockets from. We could try and do the same in Florida and see if we can find Cape Canaveral. But it becomes very clear that there's context to it. So that's why maps are so powerful. But what I found, and what we've done, and what we did with, say, the England food hygiene, is we had the idea where we had to have a hierarchy kind of situation for our region and local authority. And then we had to have detail in terms of latitude and longitude for the actual location of where it was going. Now, for a retailer like this, you're never going to have latitude and longitude for all your customers. I would certainly hope you're not. If you have that information, don't use it, okay? Do not put maps in your business based on customer location. It really doesn't add any value to it. If you're going to say it does, I'll explain why. If you know where somebody's purchased something, what it does is it focuses your mind to say, well, that's the location, but that's just the location they purchased it. They might only spend 5 minutes a day there. So from a company perspective, that's a level of detail that isn't actually adding a great deal of value to you. What you'd be more interested in understanding is, well, what's their locale? Because that way then helps you determine in terms of, well, should we do radio advertising, television advertising, any other kind of advertising to really get the message to them. And that's just much more important than knowing, well, they're here. Because if they're here and you end up with lots of them here, you've got lots of dots. But then what do those dots equate to? Is it this postal code? Is it this state? Is it this city? And once you're at that point, then you should have just used these dots. Yeah? Good. I hope you understood that. Okay? So we've got this. So we've got this nice way, haven't we, of going up and down through these things. So the question would be, wouldn't it? If we're going to say, well, we're going to get rid of postal code, just for the sake of argument with this, let's just say we'll get rid of postal code from this. Okay, so we can go down to city. Then what we can do is we can say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put postal code as a drill through. Okay, so we're going to create some different things with this. All right, so the first thing I want to create is I want to create a new tooltip. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page, because a tooltip is just a page. On the page here, under the canvas settings, you can see where it says this, we're going to pick tooltip. And it makes it teeny weeny, as you can see. What we can do though is we can, if you really want, you could pick custom and you can put in specific size. So you don't have to use the size that it creates for it, okay? You can pick any size that you want. You could even use a full page tooltip. Wouldn't advise it because it just makes a mess and causes all sorts of problems, but you can, okay? It needs to be small enough that it doesn't block the whole rest of the visual, but big enough that you can kind of show the content. So, you might want to make it a little bit bigger, make it a little bit smaller, those kind of things, that's fine. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to go to view, and I'm just going to tell it to make this full screen, just because it makes my life much easier. So fit to width, fit to page, sorry. Okay, so we've got now our page that we're going to show. Now, what we can do next is we've got, what's the tooltip going to be based on, aren't we? Okay, so page information, it's going to be a tooltip, show tooltip on, and this is an interesting one. So what we can do is we can put specific information about this tooltip. And I'm going to try something different here. I haven't tried for a long time, so we'll see if this works with Bing Maps. So what we're going to do is we're going to put state in here. Okay, so we can put state in. In theory, you can put state, you can put, we'll put state in. Okay, so we know we're going to have state. So what we can then do is let's put in state here onto the page. So what we want is we just want state, and we're going to make that a text box card. There we go. Okay, so we want first state. Right, and we give it some space, make it this, make it that, full width. You're saying, well, what does that mean? So if we go, we'll just call this TT because we'll need to go back and forth through it, won't we? TT state, okay? So if we're on 3 now, and we hover over here, see it shows us Texas, Florida, okay? So this is one of the things that Power BI does. It will dynamically build your tooltips when they're needed, okay? So we can see it's going to work for us. Potentially at Pennsylvania, so we do know we need to potentially change the size of this. So let's go here, size and style, not size and style, call out value, isn't it? Let's drop that down to say 30 point. Okay. And we don't need the label, do we? category label. No. Let's do that. Okay, so we've now got Alabama. Oh, the name of the state. So the next thing we could do is we could say put in a chart. And we could put month year. And then we could put salesman. Okay. Why is that not? This month year. Why else is this salesman? That should be different, shouldn't it? Why am I not? The year's not working. I'll just copy that. But that's it's nice that you can drag and drop and copy and paste things between visuals. But remember, size changes do make some of these very awkward. Okay, so we've got that. So this does work. Let's get rid of that. Oh, it's because we did that, wasn't it? There we go. Okay, so we get this. Yeah, we'd probably do it with a shorter range or something like that. In real world, we would use like a proper offset for it. But we've quickly built something, haven't we, where we can see what's going on. Let me see. Can we further reduce the size of these things? Because they're still too big, aren't they? Let's make year basic. 2016, isn't it? Here we go. Okay. So we've got 12 months in there. Okay, you would do a rolling 12 months in whatever you're doing. Don't worry, because this stops back in 2017. Just difficult to do. So we can go back. We've got a lovely map here, haven't we? And we can see, right, okay, if we pick on Florida, we can see performance month over month. Okay, and we could then say, well, what we want to do is we could say, well, if we come back to the tooltip state, let's remove this and let's put in a text box. Let's reshape this. Okay, and these text boxes in Power BI are getting very good these days. They just are a nightmare to try and move around pages. Microsoft hint, hint. If you want to make my life easier, make tooltips work really easily to be resized and moved. There we go. Now we can grab it. Right. Right, where did it go? I'm going to cut a big chunk of this video out. Okay. Right. Yay. So we got that. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, like, let's insert a value. State. Okay. So we've got state. So we're going to send to that. And you're going, well, big whoops, Ross, you managed to put state in. You'd already done that before, hadn't you? Let's bring that back. Let's put that back up to 28, say. Oh, we'll go a bit lower than 28. It was that big. 18. There we go. Okay. Let's do this. Drop this down. Let's go to a new line here. These things. I have said how much I love doing these guys. And then we can insert another value. Total sales.
and then we've got value. This is going to be sales amount. Okay. And that is going to be currency, and we don't want any decimal places. Okay, so we can choose, let's make this make it bold. And let us center all that. Okay, and we probably want to make this bigger. Okay. Drop that down, get rid of the line. There we go. This down. Okay. So we've got something, haven't we? All of a sudden, we've pieced this together. These text boxes, they are great. Bringing these values in, they are great. But my goodness me, are they finicky? Can't even say it. Okay. There's just gotchas all over the place with them. So what we've suddenly got then is we can hover over and we can see kind of what's going on. So we've got an indicator of where we are. We could put more stuff in. We can do more. We can see like trending. And we've got the total sales for it. So we can see we're actually really building up that process, aren't we? But you can see the drill down has disappeared. So what we end up having to do is to right click to then drill down. And if we drill down into say Virginia, you see that this doesn't really work anymore, does it? For all we still have Virginia and it still filters, it's not bringing the right information through for us on this tooltip. So it's not ideal for us. So it's one of those gotchas. You need to think through what you're doing. There are ways you can do it. So we can write a measure that would return the state if it has one value, city returns false. Let's do that, shall we? Okay. So DAX measures, new measure. I'm going back to using this because they're saying it's very Copilot, which Power BI Copilot doesn't exist. I'm going to keep saying it. One day Microsoft might listen, or they might tell me to cease and desist, never talk about it again. State or city equals be a variable, wouldn't it? VAR. No, it's not. Sorry, I'm literally just thinking about it. Let's just do this. Right, VAR true. Has one value. Address city. If that's the case, then it is going to be let's get the marked address city. Otherwise, let's get the marked address and state. Okay, close those brackets. Now what we can do is we can go back to here. We can pick on this and we can see where it brings up the value, and we can say this is now going to be city or state. Is this going to let me write? State or city. Okay, so it's going with Wyoming just because it's a different way of calculating it. If we change that, go back to 3. So this is now Richmond. Okay. Rangeboro. Yeah, you see. So now we can right click, zoom up, drill up, hover over, which gives the state. Let's drill down into Illinois. You can now see we can go to Chicago, Okay, so lots of things you can do. It's easy enough to do that with the DAX. It's easy enough to go, right, we're going to do these way of working, and we can actually now make our tooltips work for us. We've got one tooltip that's working and doing double duty across this chart. What we would need to do, remember, is we said that if we wanted to get that drill through so that we could then actually go and see, well, what's the detail, say, within Chicago, we would need to do something different. So let's go to another new page and let's build a drill through. So for this time, what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, we've got a new page, page information. It's going to be a drill through from. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say, right, where we want the drill through to be from city. Okay, so we're going to pick the city. Okay, so we're going to drill through from a city to here. So what we want then is we're going to put in a map. And the map is just going to be postal code. Okay, and you can see it goes a bit crazy with postal code. So we should probably, tell you what, let's bring back in. No, we'll leave that. Okay. Again, this is where you need to really think through what's going on there. I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so we'll keep the similar layout over here. Paste it here. Okay, well, what we're going to do this time is instead of Wyoming, actually that should work, shouldn't it? Let's see what goes on with the case. So we've got to here. So we can now go back to 3. We're drilled down here. We can right click on this and we'll see there's a drill through now. Goes to page 7. Come through to Chicago and we see we've got these 2 areas here, which is again one of those things. So we would need to check and see what's the best way to get this drill through to work better. So if we bring city in as well, but we expand that down, so we've got that. Let's see what happens now. If we go back to page 3, if we right click, let's drill up. Okay, let's go to somewhere else. Let's go to, say, California. Let's drill down from California. You see, we didn't have the drill through until we got down there. Let's go into San Francisco. Let's drill through. Let's see, page 7. San Francisco, we get the various areas broken down. Okay, so we haven't done too much with this so far, but what we could do is we could say, all right, so we've got this. So we could bring in total quantity sold. It's the bubble size. And the tooltip could be sales map. Okay, so they're going to be able to show you that, but also the map. So we're actually starting to suddenly get more. And again, we've got a tooltip, so we could build another custom tooltip here. We could do a further drill through from each of those. We could do lots of things. But you're starting to see we've used maps quickly, easily, and efficiently to kind of get to that point where we're able to zoom up, zoom down. Let's make this actually Azure Maps, because that's what we're doing, isn't it? And we've got everything that we would need. So we've got the map. Brilliantly, perfect. We understand now what we need to do. What other map types are there that we've got really within Power BI and that we should kind of be aware of? And is there anything that we should really know about them, or is there issues or challenges that we might face with them? So one of the map types that we've got, and this is maybe the one that might be ideal here, is the filled map. Okay, this one here, the filled map. Now, the filled map is filled, it fills an area. But what it misses is the ability to really put any information on that area. So if we change this to a filled map, let's see how this works. I don't know. Yeah, so we now see actually what those areas are. We can hover over and we've got the tooltips telling us what's going on with them. So for us in the way we work, this might be a better map to use in terms of that this is the important bit to us. Which bit of San Francisco have we got customers in? Where are we selling to? Is there something we should be doing around this area or this area? You know, what can we do? So there's more information, and of course you get your little let's go back button on your tooltip. and we can choose to go up and drill up. And again, these are all buttons that you can kind of start to put onto visuals as well. There's things you can do with them, but we're getting that navigation here, and you're starting to see how that navigation is pieced together, and all for the benefit of really making maps kind of sing for us. Now, the issue or the downside, as it were, if we drill into, let's go into text, because we mentioned text, we never went into it. Let's drill down into text. Okay, so we can see areas in Texas. Let's go to Houston, right? Click, drill through. We can now see these are the areas around Houston where we're landing sales. Now, the field map, the big gotcha with the field map is there's no real way of showing the difference. So we've got this 181, 184, and 90. So there's kind of like, this is half the value of the others. It's not really telling you that. It's also half the size, well, but you know, which again, your dots potentially don't tell you. So there's pros and cons, but it's difficult, I would say, with this. Let's see, what can we do? If we click on there, you can see there's not really any options to make it better. In theory, we could use the colors. Actually, we could probably use colors and build some sort of a sales or do something with it and use conditional formatting to try and help. But yeah, I'll leave it up to you. You know, you can experiment. There is an awful lot of experimentation you can do with the maps to make them work optimally for you. But yeah, that's what it is. What it is. Okay, the last one that we've got, and I'm going to go to a new page for this specifically, is shape maps. Okay, now shape maps you have to enable still. So you do that by going File, Options and Settings, Options, and under Preview Features, you'll find shape maps. I think it's the second or third from the top. You can tell I've done this far too many times. Second from the top, okay? Tick the box for it. Shape maps have been in preview for as long as I've been using Power BI, pretty much. I think they were pretty early into Power BI within 2 years, I'd say. Kind of looked at them for a long time. I don't know what to do with them, and then yeah, finally had the option. What we've got here, though, because we've got US data, I'm going to bring them in. Okay, it looks like a map. Okay, now what shape maps are not, which is confusing, is they are not maps. Shape maps are a line drawing where a polygon is assigned a name, right? And that name is then used as a way of mapping data to it. That's where shape map comes from. But it's not actually a thing. So we're going to click in name. So state, and you can see it's brought, oh yeah, we've got all the states. Brilliant. Okay, but we can hover over it and it shows us kind of what's going on. Okay, so we get information there. Color saturation, we could choose to turn around and say, let's make that by sales amount. Okay, and you can see we've now got some way of viewing quite quickly and easily what's happened. And in a lot of ways, this is quite a nice map to use for what we need because we've got something that maps to it. So US states map to it. If you look through some of the others, you see, you know, as long as you've got stuff that maps to these, it's great. If you don't, you need to then build a shapefile or find one. I can take you through doing some of that we've done in New York. We'll probably do a specific video just about the New York shape file. In general, the main thing to think about is how many polygons have you got? The more polygons, the slower it will be to render and build, and that then decreases the performance of it. So kind of US states, your 50 is kind of all right, it's decent, it will work. If you start going down and saying, well, we want everything, we want to be able to have like the full postal code level for the US here, you'd have too many data points for it to work. And at that point, then it becomes really difficult to keep it working in a functional way, and it doesn't render well either. So there's trade-offs, but it's a nice familiar way of working, and it does give a very good result for a lot of things. So I'd definitely say it's worth having a look and worth using them, but be warned that if you have to bring in your own custom shape file or something like that, A, it can be difficult to find, and B, it can be challenging to make sure that it does retain everything you need it to do. The last one I'm going to talk about today, and we won't really do any demos with it, it's not really anything I really would do with it, I'll be honest, is ArcGIS. So if your business and your organization has gone down the ArcGIS route, okay, which many organizations have, there's nothing wrong with it, okay, it's a really good tool. You can actually integrate it into your Power BI reports. So if you've got your ArcGIS server, you can bring that through and you can actually start to use layers on your report stuff. So I know, for example, like the city council here, they use theirs to map things like public, like the bins on the streets. You could then actually potentially put together something showing like weight of rubbish collected from bins, frequency of pickups, those kind of things, challenges where issues are raised. So you could have a Microsoft form that members of the public could put stuff on, and it would then update and set a flag on a bin for the map. So, there's all these things you can do. It's not rocket science, it's fairly simple to do, but it all ties in with that. So the ArcGIS side is worth knowing it's there. As I say, without having an ArcGIS server tied to it, it's just a different map. It looks just like a different map. But it is very useful. And I know for those organizations that do use it, it's well worth knowing that it is there. So what do you reckon then? Okay, now, in terms of maps and the capabilities of maps within Power BI, they do an awful lot of heavy lifting for you in terms of getting your data sets out there, getting people to understand what's going on. So I would really recommend taking the time and the effort to get to know what's going on and know the maps that you're going to use. We touched on something as well there, didn't we, in terms of familiarity of maps, and a big part of that is also going to be around the standards that you use within your organization. Should we use light maps? Should we use satellite maps? Do we have a point where we say if at this level it needs to be a satellite so that you can actually see something? Azure Maps, for example, also has traffic layering that you can put on. You might say never ever turn traffic layering on, because why would you need to know current traffic when you're looking at last month's sales data? It's like, but it's nice to know that these features are there in the event that you're going to do like a live report or something like that night. So, it's nice to know where the traffic is when we're looking at, well, where do we need to deliver? Or if we went back to our city council example, if we need to go and pick up the rubbish from the bin that's here, what's the traffic like? Those kind of things are nice to know. So you can kind of see the value add from a lot of these things, but it's worth making sure that you clearly document and your center of excellence is aware of the map types that they're going to use and how you're going to use maps within your organization, also that you can really benefit the most from them. That all makes sense? You inspired, you think, I'm going to do this. Okay. The other thing we also did, don't forget, was actually really looking properly now. Did that proper demo where we built the stuff in, didn't we? Where we had tooltips, we were going up and down, and also then that drill through. What we didn't do was put in an external tooltip or an external drill through, which is fine. I mean, I'm not going to sweat too much about it. We've got other weeks to do it. But the key thing is for you to see that this map functionality allowed us to go up and down, but also then allowed us to present more data for it. So just as we've done with all of the reports that we build, and I'll be honest, kind of drill through, drill up, drill down. It's one of those things. You need to learn how to do it because every report needs it. You can't just have, here's a top figure number, right? You need to have, this is the top number, and then you drill through and down into actually what does that number mean? What's the support for it? Is that number meaning what we think it means? Yeah, because you can have, going like a classic, like an IT service desk, for example, right? An IT service desk will have an SLA potentially for it. So we've got, say, a 90% SLA, tickets be resolved, 90% tickets that are resolved and resolved on time. Did you hear the key word there, that are resolved? So what we're really saying is, and I'm laughing because I've seen this so many times, what we're really saying is if it's resolved late, it's a problem. So if it's late, we don't resolve it. They just stay open. And then you suddenly go, okay, so management crack down and say, well, someone's flagged that the number of open tickets is going up, so they all need to be closed. So they close them on the 1st of the month and then drop all the SLAs, which gives them a chance to build them back up. Honestly, like service desk, like fudging of figures is great. And it happens in everything. Kind of what gets measured is what gets done is what we say. So if you're saying we need 90% success rate, that people won't go, oh, well, I was wrong and I didn't do this properly and things like that. They'll just leave them in a corner until they can get away with it and maybe squeeze them through at some point. If it's fine, it becomes an issue. So you need to have the ability to drill down and really explore them and understand what that figure means, and that you've got support metrics to really validate that this metric is good and that the yay is actually a yay. Yeah. Champion. As we've moved through in semester 3 of our Power BI 101 course, there's a few things we need to kind of cover, and there's some things I want you to see and think about, and I kind of go, right, I understand a bit more now about actually what's going on. Now, one of the things that you guys are probably aware of is that I'm not a big fan of Power BI Copilot at the moment. And mostly that's because, well, it's not a thing. It seems a bit limited in what it can do and what it brings to the table, but it still seems to be something that's there. Now, there are other functions that mimic a lot of that functionality within Power BI that I think are very useful. So let's take some time today and let's look at the decomposition tree and the key influences visual, because I think those two are well worth understanding and well worth knowing what's going on and knowing that they're there in your arsenal, that you can bring them out. But first, the boring bit. Geordie Intelligence is, of course, a YouTube channel. We're entirely reliant on your interactions with the channel, how much you like the posts, how many comments you give, how many people subscribe. So why not give a gift of subscription to your friends? Tell everyone you know, subscribe to Geordie Intelligence. Really make their day. So here we are, yeah, back with the map, the shape map that we did last week. Now, I'll be absolutely honest here. We're a little limited in terms of what we can do, just because this data set is limited. You know, in terms of a real world, hey, we've got lots of information coming in about our products, our customers, like the sectors that they go to, all of that kind of thing. You will find these work an awful lot better. Okay, for this, you kind of got, it's a bit limited. So I'll put that down as a caveat straight away for you. But what I would like you to do, not what I think you would do, what I want you to do is look and see, right, I understand how this works now, and I can see where the benefits would come and why we should use this. And then when you've got your real world data set with your tens of dimensions that you've got around the fact table, as opposed to just kind of 2, you'll find that, wow, actually we get a lot more information, a lot more value out of this. But for now, let's have a look and see kind of where this goes. So let's start with a new page, right? And let's start with the decomposition tree. So we're going to bring this in. Now these are always discussed as kind of the AI visuals. So we've got the decomposition tree here. Let me zoom in actually so you can see where we're talking about. Decomposition tree, and we've got this one here, okay, the key influences. So we're going to look at those two. The narrative is also there. That's still pretty good. But with the text box side, you can do stuff. It's well worth looking at them. Narrative, we'll probably do a separate video on at some point. I don't know when. Okay. So we've got this decomposition tree. So what we want to look at is see, well, what goes on in terms of, if we looked at sales amount, what breaks that down? So what we can do then as we get to here, so we can start to say things like, let's bring in, explain it by segment. We've got our customer hierarchy, we've got our product hierarchy. Well, let's get rid of the thing, let's get rid of postal code. Just interested in state and city. Category, subcategory, product name. Do you want product name? Yeah, we'll leave product name for now. No, let's get rid of product name. We'll get rid of product name. Okay, so we've got some information here now, haven't we? We've kind of built some simple things. You can drag and drop bits and pieces from different dimensions in as well. So we could let's bring in ship mode as well, because that's always useful to see. Okay, so what we're asking for is we've got sales amount. Now explain this by is what we're asking. So we're saying, well, you know, what's gone on with it? So if we zoom back out now and we see, well, we've got this, great. What do we do? Let's click on the plus. And it comes through and says, well, what do you want to see this by? How do you want to see that broken down? So we can say, well, I want to know this broken down by, say, category. So then we're going to pick category. We can see, right, okay. So we can see now how that total figure breaks down and relative to it. So we could look and see, well, under technology, really, what's going on with that? What ship mode is used? What subcategory? What segment? Let's check segment showing. Okay, and we can see that kind of most of it's going to consumer, which is interesting potentially for us. Okay, we could expand consumer. And we say, well, actually, what's a high influencer or a low influencer for us? So we could say, well, find the fields with the lowest values or find the fields with the highest. Okay, typically you go highest, but we're going to go low this time. So, you know, let's see what's low. We can see Conway. So we've gone to cities, haven't we? So, you know, Conway has got our lowest there. And again, we can right click, and because we built a drill through before, we can drill through to it because we're at that level now. So again, you can do things and your drill throughs will interact with different areas of it. You know, we can't do it from here, but if we had a way of drilling through from there where it could work, it would work. So we can go and drill through. We can choose to say, well, for Conway, what ship modes are we using now? Second class, okay, it's all ship modes. So there's only one, presumably, order that's gone there. We could pick to say, well, corporate, where's corporate gone? And we can suddenly see that we've got these breakdowns. And then what we can do is we can click to say, well, remove some of these. We can see this, we could look at the consumer. We could choose, well, let's remove segment. And we can get this breakdown of what's going on. And we can actually start to really explore what is going on within our sales. So what is influencing these sales? What makes up these numbers? Yeah, so there's a lot there that we can do with this. And the decomposition tree, for all it seems relatively simple, will add an awful lot of value to your analysis. And especially when you think, well, I can click and see how that relatively breaks down. I can reorder things. It's like we could bring in ship mode, then we could say, well, for same day, well, what category is those? Same day. So mostly it's technology, which we wouldn't be surprised by. Furniture, same day. That's a bit interesting, isn't it? We could say, well, what state? California is the most for that. But we're starting to piece together and we can see amounts coming through for these values and seeing actually what's going on. And again, remember, this is Power BI. So if we went to, let's go to page here, page 5, let's just do that, okay, which is our relative weeks. Bring that over here, let's paste that there. And let's, with this, key thing I want you to see is it's interactive, isn't it? So other visuals on the page will interact with it. That's the main thing you need to think. So as you're building these up and you start to say, well, what's going on here? You can use this to filter, cross-filter, highlight areas and actually get a lot of intelligence out of there. But then also knowing that you can bring in, or your tooltips will still, not your tooltips, your drill throughs still work with it. Okay, so that we can say, well, we're at Jonesborough. So if I went and set for Jonesborough and right-clicked and drill through, page 7, you can see, here we are, this is what's going on. So we've got the area highlights that are there. We can see what's happened. We can see as well, because of how we built this, and this is one of the things we didn't really touch on last week, but the nature of our drill through is such that it retains the other filters. You don't need to with those. There's a lot to unpack with drill throughs, and I don't want to do it in just one big session. So in here, we've got cities used as a category. We've got keep all filters. We could choose to have that off, and then it would just keep city. But we've got the ability, haven't we? We can start to really expand and do an awful lot with our tooltips and with our drill throughs to actually really narrow down and get that analysis that we need so we can really understand what is going on across our organization. This is really where business intelligence really comes through. Okay? Yeah? All right. So what are we going to do with the next one? So let's see. So for the next one, I'll tell you what, let's just let me duplicate this. Okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this here because I think this has kind of got what we would want. I'm going to pick, let's go to the key influences. So we've changed the visual type, okay? And we can see we've got this expanded here, and we can now see what goes on what's the key influencer for sales amount to increase, okay? And we can say, well, show only amounts of visuals. Here we go. We can pick and look, and we can see relative to other things. So we can see standard class as a key influencer, isn't it? And again, we could pick standard class, we can pick those, we can pick everything else, okay? But you see with this, it doesn't cross-highlight the other areas of the other visuals on your page. So you kind of, if you're going to use this, you often end up having to put it on its own page, but it does go a long way towards helping you understand. We can say what triggers low performance from this. And you see it goes where it's office supplies is low, but where we see art. So our art supplies aren't really going very well. Neither are our fasteners or our labels, but we're starting to get to that point, aren't we? So what's our top segments? So your segments are areas that combine multiple items. Yeah. So if we look here, pick this, see this is where the category is not office supplies and the subcategory is furnishing. So it's furniture basically. And which is where you're going to get to. There's going to be some things here which are of minimum use because it's kind of obvious, but there's going to be some things which are very useful to understand. So here we can see what's going through for a high sales amount. Yeah. So we've got this lots of not, isn't it? So it's not office supplies, not consumer, is standard class, and it's not furnishing. So we can see these are the areas that are having high sales amount. And if we brought in profit instead, for example, which I don't think we have. Do we have profit? I don't think we do. Pretty sure profit isn't there. It is sales. Profit. So we do have profit. So if we brought in, say, a total profit, we could actually then look and see, well, how's our profit come through? Let's do that. New measure. Sum of sales profit, okay? And I've put it in the wrong place again. You guys are going to think I'm so inconsistent. Right, let's make that currency, and it's US, isn't it? And let's have 0 decimal points to get decimal places. Okay, so now if we come back to here, and if we say we want to look at profit here, and we can say, well, help explain it by sales amount. Okay. Not have by sales amount. We can actually start to see what's happening. So what is triggering? What's the key influences for high profit? We can see copiers get lots of profit from copiers. When sales amount is high, we get more profit, which is obvious, but it's worth noting these things happening. What you're seeing is we're getting different charts and different visuals starting to appear here. And we can choose to copy visuals, we can choose to do things. But you get an awful lot that goes through with it, yeah? So the key influencers will do a lot of heavy lifting for you, along with your decomposition tree. So let's have a look and see what does the decomposition tree look like now if we do that instead of on sales amount, let's do it on profit. And remembering this is actually on sales amount, isn't it, that one? So let's put this onto profit. Okay. And again, this is where it gets really useful. You can start to actually understand what's going on with these things. So our profit of 286,000, we've got that breaks down. So we can see standard class shipping has a good profit. So this is the highest breakdown of profit. Technology California. All these are all things that we can start to see what's going on. And we can also see where you've got areas potentially dipping below zero, which is worth being aware of. Where are we losing money? Where are we actually not making profit? And these are all things that you can do quickly and easily. And again, because we're able to explore this with other visuals, we really do get that deep dive that we need to properly understand what is happening. Now, do you remember the important thing that we've talked about, and actually what goes on with this and actually making all this work for you? So we've got all the extra pages, but remember, for our master report, we shouldn't be using it for visualizations. And what we're seeing already is one of the things that we see an awful lot in clients when they first get started, is these big reports with lots and lots of pages. Okay? We don't want lots and lots of pages. We want small reports connected to the same semantic model. And because we've got small reports, it means we don't really care if something goes wrong with it. It's just data. Well, not data, sorry. It's just visualizations. And that mindset change is the one that we need to kind of make sure that we really land here. Okay? So what I'm going to do is let's publish this. Hit save. Yep, I'm going to publish this to my, what's it? Demos. This demo is Power BI 101. Back to basics. And here we go. Okay, let's publish it back to basics. Okay. What we've got now in the back to basics is quite good, because what we actually have is something that's going to allow us to kind of emulate what we've got in a really not kind of way. Really, yeah. Bring this down here. Okay. So in back to basics, we've got a record, haven't we, of all the reports that we've published, okay, because we've done multiples by now. Okay, we've published it several times up to the service. These are all starting to appear now. Okay, we can see we've got 3 semantic models, we've got various things. So what we can do is we can say, well, let's go into this week 11 that we've just published. We can see we've got different things here. And I could say, well, what I want to do is I want to I can't do that with a keyboard, can I? Let's pick, it's on page 6. Let's pick this, okay? So we're going to pin this to a new dashboard. Sample, bullet sample, okay, pin that. Let's go back to here. Let's go to page 5. Okay, we can see, oh, we've got nothing. So what we can do, because this is one of the things you can do with this, we can go into edit it from here. Stuff that we can't see, we can pin that to sample. Okay, and then we can go, let's go back to reading view, come back to here. Okay, so we've got now sample, so we've got this dashboard here. And what we can see as we hover over it is it tells us the information. So we actually get information out from it, which is why we're saying this is like a menu that you've got. Okay, but remember this page we didn't want to, was going to be hidden. So what we can do is we can click here. We can say, let's edit details. We don't want people to click on this and go to that page. We hid it for a reason, didn't we? And we're going to say we want this to go to a custom link. And so within our reports, we can pick something. So we're going to pick week 11 report. But what you're stuck to is it just goes to the first page. Now, because it just goes to the first page, that's why you end up with lots of 1 or 2 page reports. Okay, so we can build up these whole libraries, this menu structure here, so that when people say, oh, I need to see this, they click on it, takes them to the right page. Sorry, I forgot to save, didn't I? Let's go back to there. Edit details. There. Pick something different. Oh. I can use a mouse, you know. This. Let's go to the week 11 report. Apply. Okay. We could choose to edit, add a tile. Let's go to web content. Oh, sorry, let's go to text box, sorry. Geordie Consulting. It's going to be a link, external link. Set a custom link to HTTPS. Okay, so we can see, so we've got this now. You click on there, it'll take you to our website. So there's a lot that you can do with your dashboard. So if you imagine that could be to a SharePoint site relative to something specific, it could be to an internal thing as well. It's just external URL just means it's external from Power BI or this app workspace. But you can build them up. You're limited in what you can do in terms of shaping, but we could say, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's put Geordie Consulting up there, let's do that, let's put that down below there. You know, we can have columns, which is one of the things we talk about, columns of things. 2 or 3 wide would be where we typically say is a good width for a column. You know, there's 1, 2, so you've got like 2 by 2s, 3, 4, you know. But the limitation you can use to help make it easier. But if you think what you're presenting is a view of data. So if I come here, remember we set this to be page week 11, this will take us to the home page week 11, which is just this master page. So small reports, lots of different things like that. That custom link that you have could be to another thing, and that other thing could be to another dashboard. And again, you could have a back arrow on that dashboard going back to the main one. So you build up this hierarchical structure that's navigable by the user without them having to really do too much. So dashboards have massive benefit to them, but they're intrinsically don't look right and you struggle with them. But once you start to use them, there's an awful lot there. So what do you reckon then? Okay, key influencers and decomposition tree go a long way to actually be able to help you zero in on little areas of your business that you weren't really fully aware of. Decomposition tree, especially because of the ability for it to actually filter other visuals on the page, is very useful. Key influencers, you might find you get insights that you weren't aware of, how there's a correlation between these certain things. Be aware, correlation and causality are 2 different things though. What you want to identify as causes. A correlation being flagged for you isn't necessarily the cause. So you still have to do that due diligence and check and understand, is that causality causal? Yeah. So is that correlation causal? Yeah, is that a causal correlation? Yes, I know what I'm saying. Or not. And then once we start to piece those together, we get more information out about what's going on within our data set and within our business. So we can start to piece together that, can't we, using those 2 visuals. And then lastly, obviously we've got this brilliant side coming through of dashboards, which are so misunderstood in Power BI. The things which Power BI has that are just misunderstood, dashboards is definitely one of them. Being able to lay out menus that have specific KPIs at the top level, all surfaced on one page, is amazing, because you can surface data from lots of different data sets or semantic models to one dashboard. Yes, they all have to be in the app workspace, but that's not a big challenge to bring a report through into that app workspace that then has that references data externally. And then there it is, you can tick, 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 bring your core metrics to one, hey, wait, what's the word? Scorecard. And then from that scorecard that everyone wants to talk about and see, you've got the ability to click and it takes you to that report to get that next level down. So for all we're talking columns at a functional level or departments, you could also have like current month, previous month, year to date, say as you menu structure on it as well, or as the rows going down, and then have some core metrics across there for each one, and then have reports on these. There's so much you can do, but again, keep coming back to it, don't we? Standards. Pick a standard that you're going to use in your business because it's important, but you will piece it together and it will work for you because these have the power for it, okay? So I hope that made sense. As always, if you've watched that, you thought, do you know what, this actually really, now I'm starting to understand things I just didn't get about Power BI before. Have a conversation with Geordie Consulting. They will definitely help take your business to the next level. Got the QR code there or there, I can't remember, and explain a lot more for you. I should really put this on this thing, shouldn't I? But, you know, have a meeting, take the time, discuss what you want to do, what your vision is. It might be that they're right for you and they'll help. It might be, do you know, I had that conversation and we talk you through and say, well, this will do for you. You don't need much from us. Either way, your business will benefit. For now, though, stay safe, take care. Ta-da.
I am Ross Waterston. I am the lead consultant at Geordie Consulting and the face of Geordie Intelligence. Fortunately, video streaming and this kind of thing isn't my day job. A couple of QR codes on the screen right now, one for me and one for book a meeting with us. We are good at what we do, maybe not so great at setting up these streams. Probably me doing it once every 4 weeks is probably my excuse and I'm sticking to it, so don't pick on me. The key thing, what do we do? So obviously, Geordie Consulting, we work with businesses of all sizes globally to actually help them make the most out of their existing data assets. Our primary focus is always on maximizing the ROI of your current investments, as opposed to saying, oh, let's buy these new shiny bells and whistles and tools. That's never the strategy that we would ever advocate for. We always advocate for maximize what you've currently got. If you do that, you will find the pain points. Once you start to find those pain points, you know where to target your investment and also where you can shrink your investment. If you're not getting value out of a data tool, don't use it. Be my advice, okay? That's me. You've obviously got our website. You've got book a meeting with Geordie Consulting if you want to take your data journey further forward. So where are we? What's going on with this? Okay, so right now we're looking, aren't we, at week 12, semester 3 roundup. Okay, if we go through, we can have a look and we can see where we got to with this. Right, I've got, let me go to in here. Sorry, it's always one of those, isn't it, where I've just shot the whole thing doing this. Now, oh, actually, hang on, I need to go back and do it so you can see. Okay, so if we think through what we really wanted to replicate, and this is what we should be, this is what we need to do here, is the idea of getting to the point with our data that it's multi-layered, isn't it? It's not just a single layer. Let me remove that QR code so that we can properly see what's going on. And then let's look at, let's say, the England food hygiene. Okay, so what we have here, right, is very much the idea of a layered approach, isn't it? Okay, so we've come to this page. We have a large map with blobs on it, and each of these blobs, if we hover over them, it then comes up with a tooltip, and that tooltip is telling me that what we have here is a location. So in this case, Cumberland, we can go through and we can see Northumberland, but it's difficult to see, isn't it? So we might want to filter it so we can choose a region. So we can say, well, I'm just interested in the Northeast. And that zooms into the Northeast, and that's going to make my life a little bit easier to kind of explore and extrapolate what's going on. If I get to the point where I go, oh, well, do you know, I actually really want to see what's happening there, I can pick an area. So we could pick Newcastle upon Tyne. We could drill down to Newcastle upon Tyne and see, well, this is actually what's happening within Newcastle upon Tyne. And that drill down has made the experience much easier for me. If you imagine I had a full map with every single food hygiene establishment in England here, bear in mind if we come right out here, that's what, 430,000. I couldn't work out what to do with it. There are ways of fixing that, and we'll cover that later in this video, but it would be very difficult for me to piece together, well, what am I looking at for it? What we then have is the ability, don't we, to then say, well, I want to go to the next level with this. So how do I easily do it? So this builds up and staggers down, or staggers it, makes it more of a staggering journey. Yeah, makes it more of a cohesive journey from A to B. We can then go through and say, well, what's actually happening in this particular area, drill down, and then we can see, we can zoom right in on a particular location, hover over it, and we get, this is the information for that place, okay? In terms of what are the scores on its doors for here, easy, right? So if you think, I've gone from national 430,000 all the way down to this specific Judge Meadow Community College Football Centre cafe. Rolls off the tongue. Okay, we can see that wasn't too difficult. And that's really where the idea of layering within Power BI is really important. You have to get your head around it. And it's something which just, it isn't apparent when you look at people and say, oh, you know, rate my dashboard, rate my report. And it's kind of like, well, here's a report. And often they're very busy because they're trying to put everything onto the page, as opposed to saying, well, we don't need to. You know, we could look at this and say, well, we've got this, the local authority, information by local authorities, and it's far too big. You know, we should potentially look at doing a dynamic axis there, where in the event that no region is selected, it shows just the region information, as opposed to it's going to show the local authority information. And that might be something to do in a future video. But you get this point, don't you? As we zoom in, we can start to see what's happening with that, and it makes more sense and everything fits. So there's definitely things that you can do to try and make it easier for your audience to consume your report content. And drill through, if you think, we click here, we go Northumberland, drill me through to Northumberland, you're not limited to it being within the same report page. In fact, if we go back to our here, and we go back to the Back to Basics report that we've got here, if we look at the week 12 demo that I built, because I was prepared for stuff, okay, we have this capability here, don't we? We can say, well, here's our map. We've got all the report, all the assessments that have gone through. If I say, go, well, let's pick Queens, we can then zoom in and let's say this one here. Click on it, we see it filters the confirmations, and then on the confirmations, if we right click on them, we get a drill through, and you see here, it's actually we've got a page, and then it's in square brackets, it's a different report. Okay, so it's detailed reports, inspection report. We can click on that, zoom back out, and we see it tells us a different piece of information about this location. So this inspection, when it took place, and the information about it. And the point of this external report was it was a nice one that you could print off potentially. So we could say, well, you know, like the scores and the doors for the food hygiene, I could say, well, you know, this is my building, this is our rooftop water tower, print them out and boom, we're amazing. Okay? The point was very clear. That was how it should be. That was what we wanted to get to. Okay? So we've built that structure there. Okay. So how do we do all these things? What's the purpose of it, and what's the best way forward for it? I'll take you through what I did before I realized that I'd forgotten to press the start button on the whole thing, and decided I should really never ever be trusted to do another live stream in my life. Okay, so we've got the capability, haven't we, where we can start to piece together what that needs to look like. So we can build in and say, right, first thing we're going to need is a map, isn't it? So what I've done is I've built some hierarchies in here. Okay, so I've pieced together and I've written something for US state, just to say US state equals New York City. NY, yeah, New York. Oh, pressing the wrong buttons. What I've done is country, to say USA. Right? And again, that's something, if you're doing map hierarchies, you need to remember, very much so, country needs to come at the top, country, and then something like state before you get to city, because especially in the US, you have cities, city names that are used multiple times across the US. So you kind of want to make sure that the map software knows when it does the lookup, how should I piece that together? So I've just hard coded these in, just country and state as calculated columns. Terrible practice, okay? But for the sake of this, it makes it work. And then I've created a hierarchy. So you just right click at the start one and go create a hierarchy. And then for each other field, right click on it and add to the hierarchy. I'm going to bring in the hierarchy. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in inspections from our DAX menu here. Okay, so we can see we've got inspections. And then all we need to do is say, well, let's go through, let's make this actually a bit bigger so it's easier for us to see. Okay, we can right click, drill down. So it goes to New York State, right click and drill down. Okay, and we now have, this is New York City with our various items on it. And this is one of those immediate topics that we should get to. So, right, what are we going to do with this? Because what we will always talk about is that what we need to do is define standards and strategies for our reporting structures. So we'll talk a lot in the coming weeks about things like themes and that kind of thing. But one of the things I want you to kind of think about at this point is map types, right? So we've got the map here, but what we could do is say, well, at this level, where we're going to use a lookup or regional lookup, we're going to use dark map, say, or grayscale. Okay, so this is our standardized map that will go here. It's not too detailed, but it makes it clearer where the dots are. Okay, these are things to discuss, things to decide. Okay, so once we've got those, let me remove this. And let me remove this as well. These, sorry, again, we built these before. I don't want to do it. We'll cover them later. Okay. If you hover over, you see it gives you the tooltip, doesn't it? The default tooltip is there. Right. So what we want to then do is say, well, how do I drill through? Because that's the important thing, isn't it? So I want to be able to say, well, we've got all these dots. How do I get down? So if I was to put latitude and longitude on here, now you'll see it's not happy. You can't have latitude and longitude and lookup. Okay, so we need to remove them. So we remove those and we say, well, how do we get to that point? And this is where we need to bring in a drill through. Okay, so I'm going to call this drill. And again, one thing to remember is for drill throughs and for tooltips, always hide the page, because it doesn't necessarily make any sense if somebody was clicking on the page in terms of the way the content works. And because of the way it's built, based around a certain filter, it's just going to look wrong. So always hide them, be my advice for you. What we need to do is go to the page settings. Okay, the page type is going to be a drill through, and we're going to drill through, if we click on there, based on borough. So pick borough, all right? And you have the option of keep all filters. So if there are other filters on the page, apply those as well. So you might have a year filter, we might have, is it anything else? Can't think what they might be, but yeah, the filter context would then be retained in that drill through, or you can leave it blank. I'll leave it ticked for now. And then lastly, if you want to enable cross-report drill through, you have to tick here. There is another setting you have to tick as well, right? I know it doesn't look like you do, but in practice, you do. For all it's mislabeled, be aware. I'll show you that later. So we'll go through and say, right, that's fine, okay? And we're then gonna say, what we're gonna say. Yeah, so we've got that. So what we want to do is bring in our latitude and our longitude. Okay, and you see we get all our places. Okay. Let's do that. And then what we also want to do, I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And again, bear in mind that we're just quickly doing this, so it's not going to be the most structured and beautiful. We're then going to bring in our inspections confirmation number as a table, and then we're going to bring in inspection date. And again, a lot of this stuff should be hidden if this was a proper real world report. Okay, so we've now got something, haven't we, that allows us to piece together what's happening. So if we went back to page 7 and we hovered over and say Manhattan, you see it now says drill through to drill. Let's do it with Brooklyn. Hover over, drill through to drill. So it opens up this page, and we can see here the filters on the page. We've got a borough, but we've also got country and state. Okay? So that's what was having that extra box ticked did. So if we come out of here and we say not keep all filters, go back to 7, let's pick Queens this time, drill through, you see it's just got Queens, right? So simple, tick, untick, depends on what you're doing. Some use cases you really want it, some you really don't. In terms of an example, so in our Newcastle Parkruns report, let's go to the Newcastle Parkruns report, that would make sense. We get back to it. So here, we pick on, say, Jasmine Dean, zoom through, this has retained all filters. If we come in here and we go through to a particular event, this has retained all filters. If we then come through to here, and I don't know, I'm just going to pick somebody random, drill through to this person's personal report. Okay, they've only been here once. I think they've been to other places though, so potentially, they've only been to Jasmine Dean once, but been to the other events as well. But you can start to see it's brought through and expanded it. So we've gone where we just want the person, because we want that whole person's history at Newcastle, at all parkruns in Newcastle. Actually, we should really add, shouldn't we, a number of times for each one of these. We might do that at some point. Again, interesting to see how these go. And then also to watch over time, I love this, that you go, oh, I wish it had that information in it. So again, you can do all those, but it's worth noting what's going on. So we go back, comes through to here. We pick somebody who's been here a few more times. This person's got a PB, so if we went through and drilled through there, it'll come through and shows you, yeah, what's going on. Okay, so we suddenly get that point, don't we, that we can start to piece together and have different capabilities of what goes on with our drill throughs and our drill acrosses or drill through. Let's get back to the report page. Okay, the decision is up to you, and think through what the context requirements are for your data is what I would always say. Right, so if we come through here and we get to the point where we've built that hierarchy already and we've built the structure, we then have the case, don't we, of saying, well, hey Ross, you had better tooltips, didn't you? And the tooltips, they're nice like this, but there are gotchas, okay? So let's put in a tooltip and see kind of what that gotcha is. So we go add a new page. In the page information here, I'm just going to call this TT map, I can't remember. And this is going to be a tooltip. Makes it teeny weeny. So we're going to view that and say make that page view fit to page. Okay. And then we can say, well, what we want is we want borough. Because we're going to want the borough to be there, but we want that to be just a little card visual kind of thing. Tell me the name of the borough. Pick this and let me remove that. I'm going to change this to say 20 points. Thought I'd removed that. Here we go. We'll say Bronx. Okay, and this is just going to be the first All right. And then let's say we want inspections. And let's say that's going to be my month year. I don't know, what's that going to look like? Is that going to look all right? That's going to look terrible, isn't it? Go, and what we can do is we can say month offset. Let's put a filter on this page. Month offset is greater than or equal to -12. Okay, so our offsets are, of course, let's try removing those headings. Offsets are the 0 value is the current value. So our current month year or our current month offset of 0 would be April. Okay, April 2025, the month year. Okay, that's 0. And then -1 would be March, -2 February, -3 January. So you can piece together and use that to really see what's happening. I'm going to remove the blanks. Always forget about blanks when I do these things. So I'm going to pick advanced filtering. Let me zoom in a bit on this just so you can see it's not blank. Let me apply that. And then on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and remove some of these. Let's remove the titles. There's no titles there. Let's see. How does that look? Are we getting that? Yeah, it's all right. That's not so bad, is it? Okay. So we've got the last 12 months. Potentially we say, well, do we need labels? Well, I'll leave them as is. Okay, but what you can see, if we went back to page 7, we come here and we go to properties, go to tooltips, on report page auto. Have we got one yet? No. Okay. Probably because I deleted the one that was there before, but now we hover over it, do it. Of course, resizing, do some sensible things to make those visuals better. What you can do, because you're not tied to the size that it puts it in, is we can come back to here. We can say under the canvas settings, make it custom. I would say absolute maximum ever to put it. We will put it, say, let's do, say, 450 by 450. Okay. You can see we could get a bit more content in here. We could resize that. We could do some other things with it. Okay. When we hover over here, though, it's about understand that's going to impact how it's going to appear on the screen and the size of it, which relative to other points may work, may not work. The big thing I want you to recognize, though, is the bottom bit that used to appear where it came up and said drill through, drill up has disappeared. So now I have to use the right-click menu and go to drill through or drill. And that's why, in terms of on the reports that we build, the free reports, we use the button. So to do that, all we're doing is we're going to insert button, a blank button, okay? Makes it appear there. You can do all sorts of styling with it that you want, but the key thing is the action is going to be drill through, and it's going to be drill through to drill. So you need to kind of make sure that it's going to work. So there, and you can see it changes to be something like that. And that's then where what we do is we put for the text in it, because they have buttons have different states. And I would say explore these. We could spend a lot of time on just a video about buttons. We probably will go through the different options around there. So we've got different shapes, different things like that. And your text is obviously the key thing. And this would be where you would bring your text in, write a measure that's got the text on for nothing selected versus something selected. You see it's disabled if there's nothing. Once you pick something, it becomes enabled. You hold down the control key, click on it, it does the drill through. Okay? So you can see that's how those are built. Very quick, very easy way of doing it, but it's still one that is not necessarily as intuitive as you might think. Okay, so we've built that, we've got the maps, we've got a hierarchy, haven't we? And we've done the drill through, and I hope it's really landed for you that, oh yeah, we should have a layered approach to the way we present our Power BI content. you have your dashboards right at the top. And then because your dashboards are menus, which is really, only think of dashboards as menus. Okay, yes, they are interactive. Yes, they are this. That's exactly what a menu is, interactive. They are data driven in that you can have key data values there, but because they drill down to a report page when you click on it, those report pages are kind of that drill down that you have there. So you're going from a top level report number of say 56, could drill down and say, well, that's the number of water inspections that have gone through in this percent, or the percentage of successful water inspection or past water inspection. I hope it's more than 56%. But you can kind of say, oh, right, okay, yeah, I get it, I understand. It becomes a way of working, right? So think through those. That's something to work through and think about as you're going through and as you're building your development and building your documentation set around this is how this is all going to work. This is how it's going to flow together. Okay? And don't be afraid to go through and test things as well, because there's going to be a lot of testing that needs to be done. You know, if we looked at these, we could have put tooltips in for each of these. We didn't. You know, it's kind of, should we not? Again, it becomes what's going to add value to your customer base or to your consumers versus what isn't. Okay? If we go back to our week 3 demo here, okay, where we've got this cross-report drill through functionality. If you remember, if we right click, we get the drill through. You see it's different again. You've got the page name, inspection report, and then the report name, detail inspection. Click on that, open it, different report page altogether. Very useful, nice to have. So how do we do all that is, if we go back to basics, what I was saying that you need to do is if you come through to the settings for any particular report page, okay, so you click on the 3 dots for it, go to settings, it opens a menu on the right hand side coming through here, okay, and we'll talk through more of this in the next semester, because it's kind of, this is more just about you being aware of it. This is what you need to make sure you've got selected, this cross report drill through. Okay, and as I say, for all it says, this report to use drill through targets from other reports makes it sound like it's I'm sending it. This is both ways. Okay, so your report that's going to do it, so our details report has to have that ticked. This has to have it ticked as well. So we tick that, we click save. Okay, and then what we can do is we can come through into this report. We can let me zoom out of here. You can see we've got our stuff a bit different because, as I say, I haven't republished what we built before. Oh, right click on that. Let's drill through to drill. And then here we have this capability, don't we, of drill through to different report page. Okay, champion. So what we have now is different types of maps, right? And maps is something that they are always of use and are always in demand in Power BI. I've never done a job for a client where we've done lots of reports or any number of reports, really, any significant number of reports, where we haven't ended up putting in a map of some description. They bring so much context to the report that it just makes sense for a lot of clients. I'm sure there are clients we've not done maps for. I'm trying to think. Okay, I can't think of any. Must be at least one. But what we get to here is we have the capability now of saying, right, what map are we going to use? Okay, so the default map certainly used to be map. Okay? And in many ways, this is referred to as Bing maps. Right? This is kind of what it was, Bing maps. Those of you who love Bing, those of you who hate Bing, Bing maps. Take your pick, is kind of what I would say. All right, let's go back to page 7. Because what we're going to do here is we can look and we can say, well, I want to use a filled map instead, for example. So I can pick filled map. And the filled map sort of works. The problem that you find with the filled map okay, is if we hover over here, everything is Staten Island. Okay, so the field map will work, and it does work very well, much better, or it works much better on a state level data set. So in our retail data set that we've been using before, the state level data makes that work quite well. So if we actually, let's try zooming up, let's see, if we drill up to New York State, yeah, we get New York State. Colors in New York State, brilliantly, perfectly. Of course our tooltip's not going to work because it's going to pick the wrong things. So it works at that point, doesn't it? And it's kind of working through how it's going to work for you. But you're kind of tied in what you do. There are more options in terms of colors. So fill color, you could pick the show all, and it would depend on what you had, and you could then choose different colors. As I say, if we drill back down and we try and say, well, you know, show all, because they're all overlaid, it just doesn't work. Okay, but in terms of, for you, you might find that works really well. You can use a dynamic one if you've got a measure, so you could do something based on, say, we have overdue percentage, don't we? We've got overdue percentage, we could pick the value, and that would then be a gradient based on that. We click OK, right? Again, because these are all overlaid, it doesn't make sense to do it this way, but you might find it works better. We can see hovering over it that we get different values. Okay, so that will be very good for you and work well, but be warned, as I say, it's kind of like, not ideal if you get down here and it's not working. This is where supposedly the shape map will come through. Now, the shape map is one which I always seem to say, be warned, it's not a map. So if it isn't a map, what do you want to do with it is kind of where people get to. So it's one where we can do more with it, but we don't necessarily want to do more at all times. What do I mean? So the shape map will allow you to piece together something that isn't a geographic map. So you can, I've seen businesses doing this for, say, conference rooms, where you have this is our map of the floor, these are the 2 or 3 conference rooms we have, these are busy, these are empty. You do hot desks as well, the hot desk is booked, it's not booked. You can kind of get everything going through like that. So that's more for kind of that real-time reporting use case that you might well have. We've used it an awful lot in the New York taxi data set that we've done tons of work with, which is definitely one of my ones I quite like. I'll put the links up on GitHub for where they all are, the various reports we've got for taxis, for this, for that, for the Newcastle Park runs, and for the England food hygiene as well. So we can piece all these things together, we can build up what we need for it. You've got different options that are available here, okay? Otherwise, you need to use a custom map, and you need to find a GeoJSON that's going to work for you, and then put it in. I was looking today for our new one, I couldn't find it, which was really annoying, and I went to try and download it from taxis, and they've updated it to a different format, so I need to probably have a look at it beforehand. I will dig out the proper GeoJSON and put it up, and obviously when you can see the taxi stuff, it'll all make sense for you. I apologize for now, it's just kind of one of those where this morning nothing went right. Okay, so we've built that, we've got the shape map. The next one that we'll look at is the Azure map. Now this is one that Microsoft are replacing, or hoping to replace, I think is probably the fairer way of putting it, the core map with. So what I'll do is I'm going to go back to this being the core map. Let's go to our drill tooltip, and let's put the Azure map in there. That was what makes sense, okay? Because it works quite well with the latitude and longitude. But what I wanted to see, or what I wanted you to see, was if we go to Manhattan, we've got lots of dots, haven't we? And then if we bring in, say, state, okay, which is, of course, has this been inspected this calendar year? Not tooltip, legend, sorry, legend, okay? So you get the idea of good. This has been inspected this calendar year, and given where we are, there's only about 200 that have been inspected, but I'm sure New York is still sub-zero mostly, so that's understandable. due, which is the ones they were inspected last year, but they haven't been inspected yet this year. These are due. Overdue is, well, they weren't inspected last year. So what's going on? Now, a big chunk of these, I am reasonably sure, big chunk of these have probably been retired now. But what it means is we can kind of zoom in and we can start to see, all right, what's happening in any particular location. And this brings it to, well, what's the right way of going about it? Okay, now Bing Maps has some interesting features with it, which I'm not going to argue with you as to whether these are good, bad, indifferent. I'm going to bring in state here, and I'm going to make this a slicer, okay, just for the sake of this demo. Okay? So if we were to pick, say, good, right, so these are the 200 or so that we've got across New York. That makes sense. What we can do here with some of these Bing Map features is we could say, well, let's get rid of the bubble layer and let's make it a 3D layer. Okay, even better, doesn't it? It looks good. It probably looks better if we don't do that, or even if we got rid of the what do we call it? The state. What I want. Yeah. Get rid of state from there. I'm going to make it a bit more 3D. When I did this before, it looked really clear. It was 3D. Next time, I'm going to learn to hit the start button, and then things will look much better, won't they, for me? I'm going to bring back state, put that in there. But yeah, in theory, what you can do with this is you can piece it together and have that build up so that you might have a 3D area data set. So especially if it's like value for money, because I haven't put inspections on, have I? Inspections for size. There we go. Okay. All of a sudden, yeah, makes sense. Okay. And at that point then, yes, we can say, well, we're just interested in what's good, and we can see all the inspections, and we can see they're bigger because they've had multiple inspections, but yes, they have currently been inspected as well. Excellent, so that works perfectly, right? So that's an option for you, isn't it? You can kind of use those. The other option is more of an interesting one, and it's more of it's one of those where I kind of look at it and go, I'm really not sure about it. So we'll go to the one not sure about, got bubble layer. What we can do is we can say, well, let's cluster the bubbles. Okay, and they disappear. You go, oh, okay. So as we zoom in, it'll expand and expose and show me more and more until eventually it's going to get down and say, right, well, this is actually what's going on here. And we can zoom in, and yeah. So you can kind of see, right, okay, does this work? Does it not? And again, if you thought through from our England food hygiene, where we start really big and we zoom down, potentially that's a good way of going about it. I think realistically I'd have to really look at this and work out how best we get this to work, if there's a way we can kind of deal with the size of clustering, because as I say, 2 here and we're still zooming in. It feels like potentially we're having to zoom too far before we get anything. But yeah, that's me. So again, I'm not fully sold on bubble clustering. I'll be honest. It feels like we might miss some of the points. I can see it if you're wanting to really get the edge cases or understand the outliers. But for something like this, potentially it's there. I don't know. Yeah, but we'll see. It might well work very well because it will remove a lot of the load. And I do see definitely when it's on, the visual is much more performant because it's not rendering every single bubble all the time. Okay, turn it off again. And the last thing, or the last 2 things, so we've got reference layers, which we will do a separate video on reference layers, because I think one of the things I need to do is find a few reference layers that I think work really well with our data set. But the key thing is it allows you to bring something in to have a reference layer for your data. It's a reference layer though, so it's there and your data will appear above it, rather than it being something that your data will interact with. So be warned, mixed use, but definitely it's well worth having. Don't misjudge me on that one. Now we're going to get to the edge case, real edge case. It's a massive edge case, but it's always sold as, Bing Maps does this, Azure Maps does this. And it's, well, you can bring in, let's go to Staten Island. We can choose to bring in traffic layer. Okay, now it's few and far between, realistically, in Power BI senses where you will need a traffic layer. Most reporting isn't live Okay, your month-to-date reports, your core line of business reports, they're not going to be live. Even if I was saying, right, we're looking at our drive-through business, what's going on in our drive-through, I'm not even convinced that the traffic data would necessarily have a huge impact beyond saying there's been a breakdown or a crash outside that's now blocked access to it. We'd kind of be aware, the ebbs and flows would be aware of it. Unless we could take the data out from there, which we can't do, to say, well, actually traffic was really bad that day, it's difficult. So we'd still need to find our traffic data set to then pull that in, to then work out how that affected our business. It is what it is. It's there in case you go, oh, I really want to know what's going on in the traffic outside for our month-to-date report today. I'll leave it up to you. You guys tell me what you think. Am I completely off base with it, or is this something that is just amazing and I've not got it? I don't know. So we get that. I'll take that and turn that off. Right, and so we've built this, haven't we? We've got those. The last two map types, really, you've got ArcGIS maps, which if your company has invested heavily in ArcGIS, you can leverage those visuals that you've built, those maps that you've built, those layers that you've built in an ArcGIS map. Okay, if you haven't done it, it's not worth doing it just for this, because you need that investment in ArcGIS to really leverage those visuals. The other one that you've got that's still free is Mapbox. You need to get an API key from them, and there is a cost if a number of API calls exceeds whatever it is they're up to now. I think last time I checked it was 30,000 calls a month, which sounds like tons, but it's, bear in mind every time someone opens the map, that's an API call. Potentially every time they do stuff with it, it's an API call. It's one of those. So far I've never been charged, but I've not really used them fully in anger with a client and seen it. So be warned. The last one that used to be really good and probably no, that's wrong. The last one that is still really good is Icon Maps. Icon Maps, though, as of March 2025, became paid only. Okay, so they removed their free tier. It's now paid only visual. As a paid visual, we won't cover it on the channel anymore, and that's there's a whole decision point for a business around whether they're going to use paid visuals or not. A paid map, I can kind of see more than like a bullet chart or something like that, but ultimately the cake always comes back to the same thing. Even if it's just an extra 10 cents per user per month, it's per user per month. As you get bigger, that's a big cost, and it tends to be more in terms of $1 or $2 per user per month, which then suddenly you're up to, well, we're already paying X amount per month per user to access Power BI. It's a big percentage of the additional of that license cost for one visual. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you for business. If you want to discuss it with us, by all means, as I say, meeting QR code at the start of the video, at the end of the video, let us know what you think. Okay, so we've done this, we've done maps. What we need to do next, okay, and the last piece that we're going to cover is, and this is one that I know we just are not going to be able to get properly into with this. So have a look with here, because I saw it. Food hygiene, wasn't it? It's food hygiene now. Yeah, so if we go to the app, food hygiene, it is here. Yeah, key influences. Okay. So what we've got was this. What would influence a score to be low? What would influence a score to be high? Right? And you can start to look into what goes in to these. Now, it's always going to be difficult based on what we've got with these smaller data sets. These are kind of smaller targeted data sets. A real world data set, hopefully you'd have more dimensions, you'd be able to piece it together. What we can see is we can kind of explore and see, oh, well, based on this, it's come through and said, well, your high quality food establishments or your low quality food establishments, these are the things that go through to it. Now, to be honest, the indicators we've used are ones that are relative to what's gone onto the score for it. Okay, so zeros, chances are you urgently need structural improvements. Kind of very common. 0, urgently need you to change management. Really important. These are ratings that go in to make up your food hygiene score overall. So if we looked at 3, for example, that might be a good one. Seeing actually what triggers a 3 could be useful, right? And we can see the sorts of things that go into it. Yeah. So we get to this point where we can see actually it's generally management dissatisfaction that triggers it. It's a lot less to do with anything structural needing to be had, but although structural is there, a big percentage of it, we can get that understanding and see, right, what's going on mostly with it. Interestingly, we've got here, takeaway and sandwich shops are the highest yet, not a big surprise. We've got 2 local authorities named here. So potentially we'd say, right, we do need to do something around those local authorities. Why are those getting 3s in particular? Yeah, are they, because it could be as simple as saying that their calibration is slightly off as opposed to where the rest of it is, or it could be there's not a good standard of food hygiene there. I don't know. I haven't done the legwork. I'm simply saying we've identified something. Correlation versus causation. Need to be aware of those. You also have his top segments. So we can see in terms of this, if we picked segment number 1, see, this is where hygiene is generally satisfactory, management is generally satisfactory, and structure is generally satisfactory. So overall, most of those are like that. Smaller number, even smaller number, we can see where it's management is generally not satisfactory. So we get this picture of what makes up that number or that value that we get. And you piece together your key influences in the same way as you would piece together the others. So let's actually go, let me open this. Let me go file, open. Open. Lost it all, right? Here we go, Newcastle. Okay, so we open the Newcastle Park runs. So if we go to, this opens. Let's try we don't want to upgrade anything. Let's go to create a new page. This is going to be our decomposition tree. Or not our key influences visual, sorry, I'll pick the right thing, keep saying it. Key influences visual, and we'll do the decomposition tree later. So what I want to do is analyze my participation, my finish minute, explain it by, say, finish position, for people, by gender, park run club, volunteer club. Let's see, is this going to actually come up with anything? So the finish minute is kind of like the time that these people have. Ah, excellent. Okay, that worked. Wow, that's interesting. I'm glad that worked. And let's pick title as well. Okay. The tracked event is what title is. Okay, so what we're saying is what triggers people to be decreasing. So what triggers people to be quicker, for example? What's a quicker thing? And we can start to see, this is interesting. Straight away, actually, this is really interesting. We've got a different thing here, haven't we? So we've got finish position going down, and we can see that tracks the average finish minute. So we've got something definitely going on here that position affects it, that's no big deal. Of course it's going to affect it, but you can see the way this is staggering here. That's to do with the different events, isn't it? We can see as well, quicker people seem to be at Town Moor. So Town Moor is definitely the quicker event that we've got. And we can see, based on what we've got, we can also do a drill through here. So we know we've got an event summary drill through that would work here. So that's something to be aware of, that as you build up your tooltips, your drill throughs, everything like that, they can be used by some of these visuals. So the key influences visual is one of the AI visuals. As I say, it's kind of falling out of favor, but it's really useful actually. It's really interesting stuff I'm seeing with. We've got the idea here, haven't we? We can see the number of male participants versus females. So we see males typically are quicker than females, and Then we've got the blank gender, where obviously people have chosen to hide their gender from the parkrun results. Fine. We can look at the top segments for it again, and we can say, well, let's pick this one. The finish position is less, so the first 133 people, for example, say. Finish position is great, yeah, okay. Greater than 43 and at time 1. That's interesting. Okay. Some of these things, again, need to be careful of, because these are not necessarily causal. These might just be, these are identified segments that go through. So things that come together doesn't necessarily mean they're all causal. If we pick here, for example, be slower if you're more than 300, if you're nearly 300 and more, but less than 368. That's a segment that they've built. Yeah? Champions. We understand what's going on now. What we can do once we've built those, though, is we can say, well, let's actually duplicate that page. All right? And this, instead of it being key influences, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, actually, let's make that the decomposition tree. All right, finish minute. Okay. So we've got the time, and we can look at that and we can see basically what goes into it. We can expand those further. You can see a tooltip came up. So what makes finish minute high? This probably doesn't work. We'd probably be better writing a measure for it. What we can do, what does work very well, is if we put, let's go with registered finishers. Okay, so registered finishers, we can see actually a breakdown of those. Where have they come through? We can expand this and say, well, actually, let's look at them by parkrun club, for example. We could remove the title. Let's go look at registered finishers. People who've done over 500 parkruns, what's the significant information about that? Oh, mostly male that we've had for that. Let's go to the high value, so it's identifying factors of that. And again, most of those seem to be at Town Moor. We can expand that and go to the high value for there. Okay, and it comes back with the volunteer club. You can do more, and you can start to then explore the data. So we could say, well, actually, I want to see what happened with females there. And it reshapes the whole chart based on that. I want to see where our runners they're not in any membership club. Okay, they've done between 1 and 24 parkruns. We get that split. We could choose further down in that train. Let's look at Jasmine Dean. Let's look at females. Let's look at... We can piece all of these together and really explore our data. So we can use our key influencers to help us get a strategy or start shape, get a feel for what's going on with our data. And then we can use that decomposition tree to really explore and understand what those segments actually mean. And this is where there's a lot of power in here, that we're not doing churn tasks anymore. We're now actually starting to analyze. And that's the difference for a business. So for us, one of the things we find, we had a client who we can't really name they said we don't want to be named, but they did say what we could tell you is that they control a road tunnel underneath the Tyne in Newcastle. And that is then what we did for them, was they were able to say, well, our staff, it came back that when we did the evaluation, it was costing us between £1,000 and £1,500 per month in terms of their time doing stuff. We say in terms of the savings that we got from them using Power BI and having everything automated. Suddenly you'd be able to spend time looking at these decomposition trees, looking at your key influence visuals, looking at other things to kind of get that, oh, what's happening here within our business? Because that's where the value add comes from. And those suddenly recouping the cost within 12 months of involving a consultancy is amazing. But then to be able to already be churning that round and turning that into insights and actionable intelligence within your organization is very different and even more beneficial. So we've kind of covered a lot of what we were going to discuss today, and I think that it was really important, I think, for you to get your head around the layering that needs to go on within Power BI to really make the most out of it, and understanding that you want your Power BI content to be consistently there and available to people. So if we come back here and we go to our England food hygiene, where we just were, but we can come to here, or just go here, and I'll just cry in the corner. The England food hygiene data set that we've built, it runs, it automatically refreshes every day. We don't get involved with it. The app, this definitely needs to be revisited because this drop down has stopped working on here, but you saw in the main report, it's fine. And the main report is what we can share publicly rather than the app. Apps is something we're going to revisit and look at in detail in the final semester, which is going to start next week, because there's a lot we really want to get through in terms of understanding the way layers built, everything comes together. So we've got apps as a big part of that. Okay. What you also then have is, as we discussed, is we need to think through, well, what goes on at any particular menu structure. So we've got here where we click and we say, right, well, I actually want to go and look and see what's going on at taxis. The overview of it, we can look at boroughs, we can look at all those kind of things. So we will do all that piece of work where we start to piece it together. But the big thing is around the automation. So the Newcastle Parkruns report is probably the worst one that we've got that we use, because it still requires manual intervention each week to run. Now, manual, because the license would be, I think it's one of the higher cost licenses, a couple of £100 a month would need to automate it. And it's 2 clicks to do the refresh that I do. And yeah, you kind of click twice and it goes and does the refresh, versus a couple of £100. I can kind of cope with that. But those are then, that's that data-driven decision, isn't it? You know, if suddenly we had all the local authorities in the northeast saying we want this run, want that, potentially then we'd be able to get recoup the revenue to say it's worth automating it properly. It's one of those where if it's just for me doing this for you guys to have a look at it and click through it, not really worth it. It's good to know that we can do it, but yeah, it's one of those. It works through it. But always think through, how are we going to establish those layers? You know, what's the tooltip structure need to look like? Does that tooltip convey enough information? Is it the right size? Should we make them slightly bigger, even slightly smaller? So, you know, all those are questions that you need to think through to really build that app-like experience that's going to help drive your business further forward and drive people's interaction with your data sets further forward. And the more interactions you get, the more people are coming together, the more they start to then leverage and use your data sets. Because don't forget, we talked, didn't we, a lot about thin reports. And thin reporting is that's something that you have to understand. The ability of Power BI to leverage an additional report based on a published semantic model changes everything. Because a citizen developer can go and build a semantic model, because a citizen developer can connect to a semantic model, because an Excel user can connect to a semantic model and get insights from it, all of a sudden, the more people who are connected to that semantic model, the more valuable any of those insights are. And that refresh cycle for that semantic model is what you start to worry about in terms of your churn activities. So even if, as I say, we went all northeast and I still had to manually go and click a button, that's my refresh job. Click, click. Okay? As opposed to I'm going to go extract the data, do this, do that, do that, and then I don't have any time left to go and actually analyze and see, well, what's happening, or look and see, well, having this just at annual is fine, but it doesn't help me understand what is going on in terms of any specific event to see, well, do I get enough information out of it or not? Yeah, and that analysis is what you get the most out of, isn't it? It's not from seeing, oh, well, how long it takes to build the pretty pictures. It's actually, what do the pretty pictures mean to my business? How can I increase the bottom line? How can I make my business more successful? That's the important bit, and that's the only bit that you really care about as a business owner, not the pretty pictures. Is my business going well or going in the direction that I want? Yes or no? Yeah? So if that makes sense, you think, yeah, this is a company, they know what they're talking about. Get in touch, QR code's there, book a meeting. Let's discuss the future of your business and how we can really leverage and help you guys make the most out of your data. For now though, stay safe and thanks for coming. Ta-da.